We are here today on this special day in South Africa, which is Heritage Day, September 24, 2019. And we're doing a special edition of NOGG Talk Show. And this show basically is to look at the recent violent attacks, or what they call xenophobic attacks in South Africa, which have claimed 10 lives, 8 South Africans and 2 Zimbabweans, sadly. And we also seen that 501 Nigerians have been repatriated or evacuated by Air Peace back to Nigeria in 2 flights. And basically what we're going to do with this show is to look at the causes of xenophobia and to propose solutions to how the governments of South Africa can tackle xenophobic attacks so that it does not occur ever again. And this is why we're here today. And this is the NOGG Talk Show. This is me, Adetunji Omotola, and I'm joined here by Mr. Kennedy Kabo, who is a co-founder of Xenophobia Victim Support Fund and also the founder of NOGG, Nigerian Organization for Good Governance, Mr. J. Esayoma. Thank you very much for joining us on the NOGG Talk Show. Kennedy, welcome to the NOGG Show.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're very welcome. Now, in front of me, right in front of me, is the founder of Nigerian Organization for Good Governance, which is otherwise known as NOGG. His name is Mr. J. Esayoma. Welcome to the NOGG Show. Jay?
Thank you very much.
Good. Now, without further ado, we're in the month of September. And as many of you know, September is a very special month because it's almost the last lap of the rest of the year. We only have another quarter after September. And what has been happening in South Africa, the reason why we convened here today specifically is to do a special show on the recent violence and looting and arson attacks that we saw in Pretoria and Johannesburg. And in fact, as we sit here, I can tell you that there's been a lot of condemnation of those attacks because they were focused on foreign nationals. And of course, the genesis of the attack was that an alleged Nigerian drug dealer had killed a taxi driver by the name of Jabu Baloyi. And once that came to the notice of everyone, the next steps by the taxi drivers was that they decided that they were going to go and protest in the community where these foreign nationals were. And of course, we now know what happened. There was days and almost weeks of violent looting. And at the end of the orgy of violence, there had been 10 people dead, 8 South Africans were told, and 2 Zimbabweans. There's been 2 plane loads of Nigerians that have been evacuated to Nigeria by an airline, a private airline called Air Peace. There's been, in fact, it happened during the World Economic Forum in Cape Town. So there were a lot of countries that pulled out. The Nigerian Vice President Yemi Osinbajo pulled out. Some countries also pulled out. And also Bafana, South Africa's national football team, found it difficult to play friendlies with Zambia. Zambia pulled out of that game, and also Madagascar. And since then, there's been a special envoy that has been sent by the Nigerian government who came here over a week ago. And also the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, sent out 3 envoys to 7 African states. Also, there's been over 600 arrests, and there's been meetings between the Minister of Foreign Affairs with the African diaspora community looking for solutions. So today we are going to be unpacking the causes of xenophobia in South Africa. We're going to be looking at the drivers of this crazy violence and killings of fellow Africans by some South Africans. And what is worrying for many of us is that it has been happening on a regular basis, 2008, 2015, 2017, and 2019. So I'm going to have to start straight with Kennedy. Kennedy,
Yeah. Again, today is an important day on the South African and African and international calendar because it's Heritage Day in South Africa. And Heritage Days, as I understand it, it means that we celebrate heritage from all corners of not only South Africa, the continent, and the world. This
Yes.
heritage is a proud day where we celebrate the diversity in our cultural being. But it also coincides with the commencement of United Nations General Assembly that's going to look on issues that has relevance to the international world. Unfortunately, our President Cyril Ramaphosa will not be part of that gathering because rightfully so, he in his wisdom realized that he needs to stay at home to deal with issues around xenophobia and gender violence. A smart man, an enlightened leader who understands that if South Africa does not put its arm around this issue, we are doomed. And I say it again, we are doomed because we cannot show leadership to anybody anywhere. In the Mandela tradition, the Steve Biko, Sobuke, in the tradition of real leaders that comes out of our country and come out of our continent, unless we arrest xenophobia as a phenomenon and we deal with it in a manner in which it's not convoluted and is straightforward. Straightforward means what? We start from the premise that some South Africans and the majority are xenophobic, and politicians and public officials must not sugarcoat the conversation to say it's xenophobia, but also there are criminality, and then we bring all of these other phenomena about or lack of employment, social divisions, on and on and on. We gotta get to a stage where we say we engage and discuss xenophobia as an isolated, separate issue. We say xenophobia is real. So what do we do about xenophobia? It involves education, it involves systematic approach and government resource involvement, local, continental and international. Xenophobia is not only in South Africa. I mean, you go to FIFA. Soccer players are now, racism and xenophobia is expressed all over the Europe. When African players score, we have seen in recently that racism and xenophobia is playing along the number one unifier sport, and FIFA is struggling with it. So we should not make a disconnection between the local, as in South Africa, continental, and international issues as it relates to xenophobia. We have not come up with a very comprehensive, focused, and systematic approach.
Okay.
We had a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs the other day before she left for the General Assembly. But we did not get into talking to her about realistic, practical approaches to how you deal with xenophobia. And I would have appreciated it if the minister stood up in that room and said, I am setting up an office within my department called Xenophobia ZA Office that will focus on xenophobia in terms of how we educate the community and we address the issues, practical solutions towards xenophobia. Because we can. If we have been able to deal with apartheid and be able to deal with the most violent characteristic in human behavior, as in those Boers, and we were able as a collective to be able to overcome it. Xenophobia is nothing in the whole scheme of things. So the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because South Africa now has an image problem, so the Minister of Foreign Affairs must set up an office that will focus on how we engage the outside world and we also engage the inside world. Because South Africans, make no mistake, there's a lot of our people who are xenophobic and don't see it, don't realize it, and are not dealing with it. So we need to educate and also engage and come up with programs at the school, community organization, political organizations, and then come honest and clean in defining and agreeing that xenophobia is real.